Okay, we are now recording. And well, welcome everyone. We've got a few, oh, there's more signing in. A few more that we're expecting, but we'll go ahead and get started. This hello?
Paul, this is Peter. I'm going to have to leave after about a half an hour. Just don't want to be rude about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. No problem. Okay, well, why don't we'll get started. So welcome everyone. So we to the Ocean Funds Roundtable, at which we're potentially segueing into calling the Ocean Investor Roundtable, and we can talk about that if we have time. And we have a fair number of new participants, and so we have, this is the 6th month now that we've had the Ocean Roundtable, Ocean Funds Roundtable meeting, and I have had, as I've been reaching out a bit further, have had additional interest from additional participants. And so what we have often been doing or always been doing is having the new participants introduce themselves and their organization for about a minute or so. And I would, just before we do that, I'll just remind everyone that we are recording, and we will, just getting some more people in the room here. We are recording, and then we will move to the, after we do the quick introductions of new participants, we will we'll move to the presentation from Daniela Sedola from the Blue Invest platform, which we're very happy to have Daniela with us to talk about that European Commission program and effort. So if I could ask those of you who are here for the first time to just go ahead and sort of self-identify and just jump in and go ahead and, oh, sorry, just before we do that, if I could ask everyone to just go to the chat room, and just so we have a record of who is all here. Sometimes as people come in and out during the meeting, it's not easy to keep track of who all has been participating. Just go to the chat room and type in your name and affiliation if that's not too much to ask. And what I would like to do then is ask those who are new to the roundtable to just go ahead and jump in and introduce yourself and your organization in a minute or so, with a minute or so of input. So I don't know, Mark, maybe if you want to go ahead and do that, Mark Schroep.
Sure. I was just finishing my typing. Well, hi, everybody. I am Mark Schroep, the director of Schmidt Marine Technology Partners, which is a program of the Schmidt Family Foundation. We support development. We fund the development of technologies that solve ocean problems. I won't try and go into all of our focus areas, but we have 4 main focus areas where we do that. We are very interested in things that can be widely used. We work with for-profits, nonprofits, and universities. We do not invest per se in the groups that we support, but the foundation also has an impact investing arm. So we have the potential to hand off groups that we're working with to that program for an actual investment, but we're as interested or even more interested in finding people that can invest in the companies that we've funded to get where they're at. And we also sometimes use contracts where we purchase units from new companies to help them get started. So that's probably more than a minute, but close.
Thanks, Mark. Very good. And I'll just work my way down the list for those whose names I believe are from newly joining organizations. So Jake, if you're there, or we can move to Kate Danaher.
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me. Kate Danaher with a new fund out of the US, S2G Ventures Oceans. I'm Larson, my co-managing director is on this call as well. We started about 2 or 3 months ago, and we're a $100 million fund, venture fund, focused on ocean health and sustainable seafood with a global mandate. I'll let Larson pick up the rest.
Great.
No, I thought that was great. And, my background is in investment banking and as an owner operator in the seafood space.
Okay, great. Glad to have you here with us. Let's see, Carrie, do you want to say a few words about Inspire? I know Michael's been involved with the group since the beginning, but in somewhat different context. So very happy to have you here as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I work with Mike Van Niekerk and at Inspire Impact. I founded, so Inspire Impact is an impact investing firm based in Sydney. I founded a new part of Inspire Impact called Inspire Australian Equities, where we're trying to apply the impact investing lens to investing in the stock market. And we use the UN SDGs as our framework. So life below water is in our philosophy and universe. And then particularly with Mike, we're actually working on the development of an ocean impact fund for this region. So currently running an impact fund and then hoping to develop the ocean impact fund as well.
Great, thanks, Gary. Did I miss anyone from any new organizations that have not participated? I know we've got some sort of new representatives, Nicole from Marine Capital and perhaps some others. Anyone else to jump in and introduce themselves?
Let me say, last time I said just a few words. Now I understand the group a little bit. So this is Peter Fikowski, and I founded the Foundation for Climate Restoration. And one of our key interests, of course, is ocean restoration. The purpose of what we do is setting the vision of actually restoring the climate. So it's not just climate action, it's like climate action for a purpose of getting CO2 levels back to what they were in the 10,000 years when our agriculture and civilization formed, which would of course guarantee our flourishing over the next 100 or 10,000 years. And so I'm here to sort of encourage those ocean ventures which are actually focused, and encourage everyone here to keep an eye on the ball. It's not just improve things, it's actually to restore the climate and restore the ocean.
Great, thanks, Peter. And we'll at some point with the group here, we'll be talking about this sort of the ocean restoration and carbon dioxide removal the opportunities and the work that WOC is moving forward with on that. And then I see, I think Lena, Lena, we're just doing very quick sort of 1-minute introductions of new participants. If you, I know you've just joined the call, if you're ready to jump in, we are recording and just having a quick introduction from new participants.
Sure, my apologies for being late. I was at a
problem.
Memorial service. I'm Lena Konstantinovic. Thank you for inviting me. I launched a nonprofit called Innovation 4.4 some years ago, and we're launching 3 new oceans-related initiatives. Actually, we launched them on Saturday on World UN Day. One is an oceans knowledge platform for funders to catalyze more funding, both philanthropic and investment funding. And the second is an Oceans Prize. And the third is a series of ocean technology showcases for governments and corporates. We also have a communications initiative that we're working on around these issues and a couple other things. So I look forward to getting to know the group, and great to see you, Mark. I also serve on the board of Schmidt Marine Technology Partners. So happy to be here and great to meet those of you I don't know. And hi, Ted. Nice to see you as well.
Thanks, Lena. Okay, so as mentioned, if people can put in their name and affiliation in the chat function that's helpful for us to keep track of who all's here and for people to be able to reconfirm who all is on the call. So with that, we will go ahead and hand the microphone over to Daniela. Daniela is the program director for the Blue Invest platform. And I will go ahead and Daniela, if you want to go ahead and share a screen and introduce yourself and jump into the presentation, and that would be great.
Great, thank you, Paul. Thank you for having us here tonight or today, depending on where you are. I'm also joined by my colleague Catherine Frieders. So we are both working at PwC in an area that focuses very much on support to SMEs and entrepreneurship, business environment. So everything related to fostering economic development in Europe. And I think my connection is a little bit unstable, but I hope you can see me and hear me. And since last year, we started running the Blue Invest project. So this is a EU-funded initiative to support businesses and growth and investment in the blue economy. So I'm going to give you a presentation that I usually share with a lot of people, but then I'll try to make it relevant to your context as well. So I understand here we have a global network of funds and investors, so this is super interesting. For us, the main focus has been at European level and a little bit on the neighborhood, let's say Norway, for example. They are very active in the blue economy. So it's great for this initiative for us to collaborate with the World Ocean Council and extend the network as well. I think you will find some of the topics here. One of the colleagues from Olivier that's in the call today, he's already engaged with us. So we had even presentations from Olivier. So it's very nice to see him here as well. So the Blue Invest, if I start, and let me just put this on presentation mode, and then it should be easier for you to visualize the slides. Yes, so the Blue Invest is a platform, is an initiative funded by the EU, and this is started with the understanding that there is a big investment gap in the blue economy. This for you, all you yourselves here that you are investors, you know this very well. You are closing the gap. You are trying to, to change the situation. But in Europe, there is a big gap still, and a lot of it is related to the fact that the SMEs, the companies in the blue economy, if they are not in shipping or in green energy or blue energy, if they are in more traditional sectors, it's very hard for them to reach investors and receive funding because the technology is not considered innovative. The returns are perceived to be quite difficult to obtain, and they are not ready. They are really amateur sometimes. So the idea is to bring ahead, to push ahead an agenda that will help them to increase their investment readiness and also connect with investors that are ready also maybe to earlier stages of investment, for example, angel and seed. We know as well that in Europe, there is a lot of funding for research projects. So there are many initiatives with billions of euros for innovation projects, for funding projects, basic research, but also startups. However, for those SMEs that are already on the 2 million kind of revenues and looking for investment above 2 million as well, there is a big investment gap, and that's where we try to act and support to close the investment gap. So the Blue Invest platform is really focusing on SMEs, on startups and scale-ups. Sometimes we also support projects, a little bit more early stage, not commercializing yet, but they have technology that is interesting for the market. And here is to provide a market path really for projects through technical assistance, through visibility, through networking, and also opportunity building. So we provide a few resources for those SMEs. And the main base of everything is a community where we try to connect the whole innovation ecosystem in the blue economy, the investment ecosystem, which is more recent as well. If I ask you, all your funds, I will probably hear that the funds are not that old, right? So what we see as well in Europe, the movement of, getting more funds in the blue economy is something fairly recent, let's say in the last 7-8 years. That's, what we have been finding on the market as well. And the other element here is that all the support from the Blue Invest is targeted at companies that have a positive environmental impact. So sustainability is very, very important. If you're following what's happening in Europe, you see there is the EU Green Deal, there is the whole EU agenda for sustainability to be carbon neutral by 2030. So it's quite an ambitious target as well. So the Blue Invest is really aligned to that as well. So if I talk to you about the features, let's say how this project is structured. So the first element is a community. So we have a community of interest. It's online, we have a website, we have a platform where people log in and then they can receive information, details of what the activities we are doing. But this community is very much animated. So our job as PwC and running this project is really to heavily animate the community. And we do this by organizing a number of events. We have physical events such as the Blue Invest Day. This is an annual event that we do in Brussels. So we did one now in February, and we have really high level attendance from the European Commission. We have the Commissioner for Environmental, Oceans and Fisheries. We had many investors present. We had sponsors and a lot of SMEs and stakeholders as well. So in addition to that, we organize thematic workshops. So we have, in the course of the 3 years that we're running this project, we're organizing 12 thematic workshops. So these are really focused in a certain subsector of the blue economy, for example, aquaculture or wind energy from offshore wind or biotechnology. So we have the different focus areas. And then we organize a specific event to talk about investment issues in that subsector. So we, on top of that, because of the whole COVID situation, we really increased our digital agenda for events, our e-events. So we have things like e-pitching sessions that Olivier also has participated, for example, and we're going to be organizing one with the World Ocean Council and also with the Forum Oceano from Portugal. So we are planning these events in December. So we need to confirm and announce the exact date. But the idea here is to provide a platform also for the investors to pitch their funds, because what we see talking to many investors and many funds is they are looking for the deal flow. Some of the funds actually have a very good deal flow, but others are struggling to find the relevant projects. So our idea is to connect the investors as well, not only between themselves and with some of our SMEs, but also with the European Commission, because I know you have a big agenda to push in terms of, funding for the blue economy, funding for sustainability. So it's to give a platform as well as an investor. So that's what we do in that sense. We also provide readiness assistance. So this is something that there is a tradition in many EU-funded projects to provide assistance to SMEs, in particular coaching, because many of you working with startups and early stage companies know that sometimes you have good scientists but not really good business people. So the idea is really to also professionalize a little bit more their approach, going to the market, commercialize scientists, to understand how to take that great idea to the market, but also to prepare them to be put in front of an investor. What we see, and we are doing a lot of pitching events, and we watch them every day, and many projects and SMEs are very bad at pitching, so it's very tough to get an investor interested as well in terms of quality of those management teams, if they not even know how to convey their ideas and products. But beyond that, it's not only about pitching, it's really about helping them to commercialize, helping them to identify new markets, helping them to identify partners, suppliers, clients. So it's really a business coaching. And in this program, we are funding the coaching of 200 SMEs. So each one of them gets 10 days of coaching. And we think this is quite beneficial. I mean, it doesn't close the whole gap of investment, but is a little step forward. We have also coaches. So then just for you to know, we recruit coaches on the market all over Europe. We have a rolling basis recruitment, and then we qualify these coaches as well. We really check if they are experienced and they have the skills to provide good assistance to SMEs. We have an academy. So for those that are selected and beneficiaries receiving coaching and part of the community, we then give them access to an academy where they have training and content that's something they wouldn't find somewhere else. For example, digital skills for SMEs in the blue economy, or all the aspects for investment readiness, finding an investor, how to approach, where to look for, how to find pre-financing or guarantees, topics like that, which are really linked to the investment. And in addition to that, we also develop a project pipeline. So this is really a deal flow. We have a pipeline. Our database in the back, in the, how do you call it, in the back end, we have a database of about 1,000 projects, but we have 114 that we are really showcasing in the online pipeline. So if any of you people in your teams are interested in seeing more details and who are these companies and SMEs, have a look. It's online, our pipeline. There is initial information, but then if somebody wants to be in touch with these companies, then we can give you access and contact details and so on. I mean, here we really curate the pipeline. We every day we try to find new relevant projects and companies and have them online. For the SMEs, this is great because it's a lot of visibility. For the investors, we believe this is also valuable because it's a curated pipeline. So it's not just a no database that's there and nobody takes care of it. Two other elements in terms of financing that's also linked to the Blue Invest. One is what we call the Blue Invest grants. So this is a grant that the European Commission has been already providing for a few years. It finances projects between looking for ticket sizes, investment sizes of between 750,000 euro to 2.5 million. So it's really a more early stage. It's about 70% financing, so of the financing needs. So the company has to find other sources as well. And this is an annual call for proposals that they publish, and we are helping the Commission to promote this and also to coach a little bit how to get the access to this fund. But also helping SMEs to get guarantees, because sometimes they get the grant, but they have to find a guarantee on top, in particular if the Commission doesn't seem them to be so ready to get the grant and have a result from it. So last year, they managed to disburse the whole amount, so it was about 20 million as well. So this was nice because there were other years where they could not finance all the projects because of the quality of proposals. So here the things are improving, which is good. And then finally, we have also the Blue Invest Fund. So this is a fund of funds financed by the EIF, which is the European Investment Fund. It's a fund of 75 million. And here it was launched in the beginning of the year. And then our role has been to really connect with relevant VCs and other investment managers that would be interested in using the fund and becoming a representative and being funded by it. So they found the partners, which is great. There is also the idea is to extend this fund, and there will be a new fund from next year. We cannot announce it yet because they haven't announced to us as well. But there is definitely a positive sign that there will be a continuation of the fund. And they are looking into developing also a blended finance platform. So here we have a totally EU-funded fund, but actually the idea would be to create another instrument where we're going to have a bit of blended finance. That can be quite interesting for some of the investors we know. So just to give an idea here about that, this is more for the companies usually, but the assistance is done in cycles. So if any of you are connecting with projects in Europe and you think they could benefit from having assistance, I'll show you what type of topics, then there is a call for applications, but this is really relevant for SMEs in Europe. And then these are the types of support we provide to SMEs. This is based also on our own PwC methodologies, because we are part of the accelerator team here in Luxembourg. And then here we give this kind of support to SMEs, about investment readiness, access to finance is really the process on how to identify the right investors, how to prepare also the business case and things like that. Things that we like a lot as well is the execution capacity is really to those that, for example, receive the grant, but they are not yet ready for a VC. Then we want to help them to improve capacity, to improve market footprint and sales, for example, then to make them more mature and attractive for, different levels of investment then. Here is just the application now I don't need to talk about. And then here I want to show you a little bit on our calendar of events. I have not put here our partnership with the World Ocean Council, but we're going to have an e-pitching session in the December. But here is just to give a flavor of the type of events that we organize, with pitching sessions, info days about the grants that I was telling you about. And then you have coupled also with industry events like a trade fair. For example, Oceanology is a fair in London, really to focus on ocean technology, a bit on ICT, but a lot on biotech as well. And then we are doing a workshop together with them. Usually it's physical, but this time we do online. For the Blue Invest Day, also what we are planning, also we've been discussing with Paul, is to organize perhaps a series of pre-events where we want to have investor roundtables with the Commission. So we gave already, a briefing to the Commission. We talk normally is DG Mare, our interlocutor, so is the DG Director General responsible for all the topics related to maritime. And we also work with the Agency for Small and Medium Enterprises, plus the EIB, which is the European Investment Bank. So here the idea is to as I said earlier, to give a platform for investors. And again, the topic here is exactly industry, about the issues, the needs, the focus, anything they see that policymaker can improve to make sure that the investment landscape is more dynamic and more favorable for everybody. In the end, it should benefit everyone involved, the SMEs, but also the investors. So we're going to organize something in terms of really focused on investors. We want to extend the global, our networks. We focus very much in EU27, a bit with UK as well, actually, and Norway. But we want to, I think it could be interesting to expand and include other funds, like American funds or, in Asia, Australia, everywhere really. But let's discuss this, and I'm happy to take any comments and questions if we have the time tonight as well. The pipeline, just to show you as well, this is how it's normally showcased. So I know this slide is a bit small, but we give a project description with the problem they're solving, typical things that are in a teaser for investors. And then we also look at the TRL for each of these projects, and comments, which are things they want to explain and show to any potential investors. So we really kind of promote this also to the SMEs and make sure they really take this seriously and provide the best information they can, because it is a platform for everybody to benefit. And then if anybody is interested, then if any investors are looking for more details, then they can have access, and then have even access to the business cases of some of these companies. Yeah. So I think that was it from me in terms of presentation. I have here the QR code of the community. So that's where you can see the website and then join the community for details. And I would be very keen to hear your, as investors, to hear your thinking around initiatives as such, and also on the issues you see that are very relevant for investors in the blue economy, because that's something we want to take this discussion to the Commission, and we want to keep evolving this topic to make, to create benefits for everyone in the blue economy. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Daniela. That was a great, very thorough overview to introduce us all more fully to the Blue Invest program. So let's excuse me. Let's open the floor up and really open discussion here. Questions for Daniela and things that you want to clarify. I'll just start with a quick question, Daniela, in terms of the timeline on the platform itself. So you mentioned a 3-year time frame, and so what would happen after that? Is there a sense of where things would go? And I think this could also be something interesting to explore in terms of the emerging partnership with the World Ocean Council to help create both the geographic scope and continuity, and also the over time to create the continuity of this very good effort.
Yes, so the initial contract that we have started in last year, and then it's going to go until 2022, mid-2022. We heard already that, we need to carry on with this. This is not something you do once and then you stop and then nothing happens. Perhaps there will be changes, there could be more innovation in the sense the way we do things, and especially the blended finance platform. This can be quite interesting. It's not something very typical done by the European Commission, also by the EIB. So definitely there will be a continuation. At least we heard that they want to continue with the initiative as such. We don't know scale, exactly the format or the size of funds or how long this initiative will take, but I think we will find out more into 2021. And then if there is, we as PwC wanna really continue also running this. Is very interesting, and yeah, it's a pleasure also to work on this topic.
Great, thanks. Other questions for Daniela?
Oh, Paul, if I may, just an observation from me. I've been at
sorry, Andrew, maybe as people jump in, if they could quickly introduce their name and affiliation.
Sorry, apologies. Yeah, Andrew Smith from Greenbackers Investment Capital. I've been to a number of the events when they were live in Brussels. I've engaged with Catherine, your colleague, in those respects, and I've judged a couple of the panel sessions. Just to say, I think the program is excellent. It's a really good meeting place for this kind of community, the kind of community, Paul, that we've got around this virtual table now. It's really excellent, and the all the work you're doing, I would just applaud it. And I think the idea of connecting with this group is really solid, and something for us all to embrace. Just observe that, Paul.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hi, Paul. It's Erica Karp in New York.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hi. Apologies, I'm not on screen. I've been a little wonky here on bandwidth today. So a quick question, in particular on the Blue Invest platform. So I'm sorry, Cornerstone Capital is an impact investment advisor, and we work with families and foundations as they move their assets in line with their values. My question is, on that platform, you said you have a fund of funds. Is that a fund? Is that like direct deals? Is that venture? Is that PE? And is it equities? And on the latter part of my question, we find it's challenging to make investments in funds in public equities. We can do it, but it's tricky to really feel like you're having a material impact. So, so again, those two questions: one on the fund, one on do you think you can do this in the public markets?
Yeah, in terms of the funds, Erica, it's a fund of funds, but looking for investment managers. So it's really, then we're going to have a VC that's going to be contracted with the AIF and then take the funds and invest themselves. Then they have to the AIF. So, and then they are remunerated based on that. So it's relatively small, 75 million. I saw some people have bigger funds actually here. The idea is to have bigger funds in the future because we already, we have these huge assistance packages that are coming and for the Green Deal as well. So this should increase. In terms of public markets, I don't know exactly what you mean because this is a fund totally focused on equity for small and SMEs. So it's not really anything related to public companies, or I don't know if that's the question.
Well, I mean, yes, but I'm also as a separate question. And again, this sounds like it might be out of your purvey, but for investors that use the public markets, whether it's small cap or large cap too, I'm just wondering if there's a way to invest in the oceans, in the public markets. But that's just something I'm struggling with a little bit.
I think what we, at least in Luxembourg here, we are really, this is a big fund market here, right? So we have a lot of institutional investors and the topic of the day is ESG. All we hear in the fund industry now is ESG as a concern, as a trend. The EU is also publishing a new taxonomy where public traded companies and funds have to also report ESG, and it's going to become obligatory. So this will come. This movement is becoming bigger, and there is more pressure. So probably in the public markets in the future, you're going to see more investment also in the ocean because of also this whole trend on ESG.
If I can just jump in, I'm Olivier Rebaud from Blue Oceans Partners, and to answer the question of Erica, to my knowledge, there is Credit Suisse that has partnered with Rockefeller Foundation to launch a big public equity fund which is dedicated to ocean impact. So then about your second underlying question, whether it's easy or not to measure impact for public equity, this I don't have any advice, but if you're looking for public equity in the ocean space, you should try to look at maybe at this fund.
Yeah, we know that one. In fact, we have clients invested in it. One of the issues we have to think about is that the minimums are very, very high to get into that. And I always think about democratizing impact investing, and the discipline of ESG analysis is just simply a tool to let us do the kind of investing we want to do. And yes, we're making progress, but it's like investing, I'll use an analogy, to investing in water, the idea of having water. To do that in the public markets, you have to have a very thoughtful framework and say, okay, we're going to take these companies, and for the most part, it's an industrial company that at least has, more than 50% of its revenues associated with, metering or filtration or something. But directly investing in water is tricky. And so I think this is the same. And so that's why we have to have different frameworks. And, again, I think we have to make it more accessible than, I think it's a good start, the Rockefeller, Oceans Fund, but it's not enough. And so that's kind of, again, what we're struggling with. But thank you for that.
Thank you, Olivia. And Erica, there is also another fund from BNP Paribas as well, and Blue Equity, I don't know exactly the name of the fund now. I spoke to somebody there the other day, but I don't remember the name, but it apparently was the first purely SDG funds, according to him.
All right.
Right,
Well,
and we've been interacting with them quite a bit at BNP Paribas, and to get them engaged, and they were heavily involved in the Sustainable Ocean Summit in Paris last year as well. So those connections are developing very well. Yeah, and I would, and this, it will come on to this in our sort of working part of the meeting, this issue of a framework and a sort of the architecture of facilitating investment in the ocean and achieving impact. And so we'll be picking that up in a few minutes here. but for now, let's focus on the Blue Invest platform. Other questions or comments for Daniela?
What are you looking for at this point? What would be helpful in terms of resources, partnerships? What are you looking for to get to the next stage?
Thank you, Lina. I think what we need to do, our role is really to okay, raise awareness is one thing, but we really want to build a network of investors. That's what our focus is, to have the investors engaged in this, not only engaged in being a source of funds for the SMEs, but really on the conversation, what we need to do to make sure we close the investment gap, how can we invest more, how can we become a little bit of a, have a US dynamics, in terms of investment, but for the blue economy in Europe, because it is a traditional industry, is not the most, dynamic industry, if you like, in terms of launch of new ventures, new technologies, and although there is a lot going on in ICT in particular, but yeah, it's an industry that has to develop, has to grow. There is a lot of dependency in the EU to the blue economy, obviously, because small countries, but the costs are relatively large. There are 5 million people that depend on jobs in the blue economy. So yeah, I think that the idea is really to make our part in the sense of what do the investors want and how can we bring them in to make sure they give back also to the blue economy in Europe. That would be the main purpose, I would say. So we don't need resources, but we need the people to be involved. We need, and I would like to ask you as well, from your perspective, how do you see this type of initiative, and how do you see the broader question of closing the investment gap? What needs to be done from your perspective?
I think one of the things that needs to be done is a very clear articulation of what is the value proposition to investors to participate. Investors are busy and looking at many deals in order to get to the one that they're going to invest in and so on. So there has to be a very clearly articulated value proposition. Is this a source of deal flow? Beyond that, what are all the different components of value that would justify taking the time to engage and the opportunity cost that means for an investor? So, and that's something I'm certainly happy to help.
Yeah. That's great, because that's exactly what we are always talking to ourselves. What's the value proposition is the key point. I fully agree with you. I think, if I could say in terms of value proposition from our perspective is okay, deal flow is one thing, but we know you as an investor, you have your people doing, searching for deal flow. So that I don't think that's the main thing, is one added value for you, because I have to say we have done, we started doing corporate days as well, because, there are a lot of corporate investors as well. And we're working with a large group from Belgium. They are in the kind of land reclamation and port area, when they kind of renovate the areas and get the environments better. And so we worked with them for quite an extensive amount of time to develop this corporate day for them. And then we were bringing all the companies, all the deal flow, and doing kind of a little hackathon with them to really solve a problem that would work for them. They loved it, because a corporate VC actually is not as strong as a professional fund in finding deal flow. So for them it was great. This is one of the topics. I think the other is really to move with the regulatory agenda as well. That's something that for you as an investor, I know it's relevant, and to have the chance to be part of this dialogue or understand where things are going, or try to influence some aspects, especially on the sustainability side. This is the moment. So I think that's another element of the value proposition.
Great. Thanks, Daniela. Any other points or questions that people would like to raise? I would reiterate what Daniela mentioned, that so we're developing this interaction from the World Ocean Council side with the Blue Invest platform to help involve investors from outside the European space into the process, and particularly then looking at these investor pitch events. So we'll be reaching out to many of you to get involved in those if you're interested. And I think that's where I think Daniela will see a level of kind of I don't know, merging is maybe too strong of a word, but certainly a strong strategic collaboration between the World Ocean Council and the Blue Invest platform as these specific opportunities to collaborate move forward, and then we can explore how to be mutually supportive, over the medium and longer term as well. So I think with December, the investor pitch session, and then with the Blue Invest Day and as you say, some preparatory gatherings in relation to Blue Invest Day. I think this really creates the opportunity to build and strengthen. And just to touch on the last point you were making in terms of the corporate engagement, I think it'd be interesting to have compare notes there as we have a series of the large maritime corporates that, that's the real strength and basis of the World Ocean Council, is knowing those industries and those major players, and more of them, as you say, have their investment or venture units that are being set up or expanded, and I think that's a rich area for creating input and collaboration and interaction with the more traditional investment community as well. Okay, well, if there's no other burning questions for Daniela and Daniela and Catherine, I'd encourage you to continue to participate in the rest of the meeting. It'd be great to have your involvement as well as moving forward. Would welcome Blue Invest, the Blue Invest platform, to keep involved with the roundtable here. And I know it's late in Europe, so we'll keep moving smartly along with our program here. And I'll put up the agenda. There are a few people that have joined since we started, just to let everyone reminder that we are recording this, and that those that have joined to go to the chat room and put in your name and affiliation as a kind of a signing in. And let me go ahead and share screen and put up the agenda here. Let's see if we can get the screen to move. I'll just do this. And I'll just leave it on partial screen to make it easier for me to navigate. So what we'd like to do here then is focus on the couple of areas, moving into item 4 here, the areas that have been identified as priorities for action from the group. And so what I'd like to do is remind you of the context of the two highest priorities that have come up, and where we're at with those, and where we might go with those. And then beyond that, and I think that will be take up the bulk of our time for the into the 90 minutes, but a couple of updates then also on the Sustainable Ocean Summit, on our ongoing efforts to develop the Blue Economy Innovation Initiatives Network. And then if we have time, certainly several of you have suggested the roundtable would be useful as an opportunity for people to bring up interesting developments in the marketplace, so to speak, to share and to hear from each other. And we can learn, decide how to move forward with that moving forward. Apologies for the airplane noise in my background here. So here is the sorry, just muting while we have some airplanes flying overhead. here are the priorities that have come out in our discussions over the last 6 months. And without going into the details here of all of it, but just to give you a sense of the palette or portfolio of ideas and topics that have been coming up, but then to focus on the third and fourth bullets in more detail now on the interest to explore working together to raise awareness and create a better informed investment community, particularly amongst the institutional investors and those that may otherwise be able to support the ocean funds that are developing and working, seeking to grow. And secondly, and this gets back to the point that came up from Erica, and has come up many times over our discussions in different ways, this idea of a framework regarding sectors, issues, metrics, indicators, and reporting. And so to particularly dive into that in our discussion today. So the first of the two particular topics then, the priorities, was to follow on from this discussion we had that came up very early on this year as we started going with the roundtable in terms of helping create a better informed investment community, particularly, as I mentioned, the institutional investors, and how we might undertake that outreach. As some of you may recall, we had been working earlier, going back 3 or 4 years, thanks to the efforts of Jacques Lemaire from Agua Partners, who's part of the roundtable here and is a World Ocean Council member. We had been reaching out to institutional investors via the Sovereign Wealth Fund Institute, for example, SWIFI, by being invited to give briefings on the ocean economy, and actually then being invited a couple of years ago to develop an additional Ocean Day at their annual institutional investor event. So there's those sort of outreach opportunities. The easiest one to start with would be inviting speakers to the roundtable as a starting point, and that's perhaps the best next step. But more broadly, the input we've had from all of you or some of you over the last few months is the creation of more materials that really help reach out to the institutional investors to understand the ocean situation, the roundtable, the ocean challenges and opportunities for investment, and the role of the funds that are being established or seeking to grow. So any thoughts or comments on that as a program of action or project of action for interested participants from amongst the roundtable, and certainly the easiest next step is, as I say, is inviting some institutional investors to come speak at the roundtable, and certainly be interested in any suggestions on which investor, which institutional investor, and which individuals in those organizations that we could invite. We have some connections with a number of those, with a number of the relevant institutional investors, and certainly could reach out to them, but happy to have suggestions along those lines. So any comments or suggestions on moving forward with this action area priority, welcome. Thanks.
Paul,
Go ahead, Michael.
I like the agenda, the content of the outreach there. That's great. On the inviting of institutional investors, could we have one that might lead with a few of them to get different perspectives? They all come at it quite differently, I think. And then I think the idea is then to broaden it out to a broader set of institutional investors through different regions, obviously, where they're based. But I think that's the work ahead. But at least to get a few of them on a call, I think would be quite interesting.
You mean a few of them at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, if we had 3 or 4, but one led the discussion.
Gotcha. Yeah, more like a panel than. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, I guess I didn't include that content. I mean, really what was driving this was getting a sense of what do they need to know from the ocean investment community. So the quickest way to get that is just to sit down together and talk about, hear from them. And I think that would feed into developing this content is really, rather than doing it before we have that kind of direct input and be able to, talk to them. So other thoughts on this?
Yeah, Paul, I mentioned a couple of sessions ago work being done by the United Nations Finance Initiative, which has as one of its goals the upskilling of institutional investors on ocean economy. And I think it might be worth our while just liaising with them. I think Dennis Fritsch is the guy to speak to, because he is assembling an audience of institutional investors with interests here. And I think what may appeal to the institutional investors is the evidence of a really joined up approach here, so that if some of these guys are being contacted by UN and by us, but it's done in a collaborative way that kind of fits together, that from the get-go represents a joined up ocean community, as it were, a community that's not in silos. I just think that might be worth doing. I think when I mentioned it, you were already aware, Paul, of that piece of work the UN is doing, but I think it might be worthwhile bearing that in mind.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And I have a couple of things. We did work or certainly offer and engage with the European Commission when the principles, the Blue Finance principles, were being developed, and those have been handed over and form the core of the UNEP FI Ocean Interest or Initiative. And we did have a session on that at the Sustainable Ocean Summit last year, and Dennis was involved prior to then moving over to UNEP FI to lead their ocean effort. And so I've been in touch with Dennis and with UNEP FI since our last call, especially, but even before that, and basically proposing that we get on, have a discussion about how to link up better. So pursuing that, and we're actually waiting to hear back from them. So thanks for continuing to raise that. It's an important piece that we want to be, as you say, seen as working together on these things. Any other thoughts on this? I think with regard to then inviting some of the representatives, excuse me, to come speak at the roundtable. If people following on from our call today have any thoughts of particular entities and individuals that they'd like to suggest, feel free to send those to me, email those to me, and we can do that outreach, undertake that outreach to get them involved, or at least invite them and see if they're interested and able to get involved. And I think unless there's any strong feelings to the contrary, I think Michael's suggestion about getting 3 or 4 with one lead sort of presentation and a few others to be a kind of a panel on from the institutional investor perspective is a great idea. So we'll work to pull that together, hopefully for our next call. So if we move on to this other more substantive than work area that has come up in various forms over the last several months, and really since the initial meeting even of the roundtable, the general context here and terminology has been about a framework, and that I think means somewhat different things to different people, but the components of that and structure architecture for that has been the sort of things on the slide here in terms of understanding the detailing out the sectors and subsectors, the impacts that those sectors create in terms of impacts on the ocean, the sustainable development issues and opportunities, and then really mapping that out in a matrix. And many of you have done this through your own organizations. I know Michael has shared the work that they've done at the Blue Ocean Investment Fund, and I've been able to see some of the others, and creating that and then taking it beyond then the issues into what are the then metrics for determining what is a positive development in terms of reducing an impact on the marine ecosystem, or improving operations and conditions to create a positive effect on the ocean. What are the indicators for that? How do we measure that? How does it get reported? And so this is the area that a number have suggested there would be value in working together to create this sort of shared or common template by pulling together the work that everyone has done and really creating a working group around this that creates standard is maybe too strong a word, but really creating the information that the investment community as a whole could look at as a framework developed by and for investors by virtue of you all being involved in helping create this. And there has been the point of also brought up particularly by Ruben from Forum Oceano in Portugal about linking this to the EU taxonomy. And I know Daniela has also briefly mentioned that as well. There's one more slide here. Yeah, and so, and this gets back to also Danielle's point about ESG, environment, social, and governance being the what is on the mind of so many in terms of impact investing or ocean investing more generally, but there is in fact not really an ocean ESG framework, and so creating this methodology or tool or framework and working to pull this together is something that would be an area of, I think, value for the roundtable participants and the broader investment community, and for the ocean, and really helping consolidate and advance this whole movement of blue economy and ocean sustainable development investing. So with that in mind, I think I did, in terms of next steps, as a straw man, I mean, basically, no big surprises here, but really developing a working group to sit down and work on this together, and really have a coalition of the willing from those of you that are interested in putting your heads together around this, and certainly myself and the World Ocean Council, happy to provide the platform and the coordinating table and process to work with all of you on this. So open for thoughts and moving ideas on moving forward with this. I'm seeing nodding heads, so I think that's a good sign.
That looks all very sensible, Paul. I think it makes a lot of sense to me to then set out the scope, and then to get those who want to participate, maybe it's separate to this forum, and then it plays back into this forum, the progress made. But maybe to get people to commit who wants to be involved, can then work out is there one that's relatively well developed that everyone can work from, or start afresh and go from there. But that process looks pretty sensible to me.
Okay, thanks, Michael. I did have discussion on this with Credit Suisse also yesterday, 2 days ago, and they're interested to be involved, and really it's I think a matter of creating a critical mass around this, and really as I say, sort of a coalition of the willing, those that are interested in putting in some time and effort on this. So what I would suggest is putting together an initial sort of working outline of this sort of scope of work, and then reaching out to everyone that's been involved in the roundtable so far. And really, as you say, Michael, the idea would be to have a working group that meets separately to engage on this, and then reports back to the overall roundtable. And if we have the core group of 5 or 6 to 10 people that really want to help with this, that would be great. I think the point at this stage is to make sure from the broader group here on the call today that this is still something that people want to move forward with. And so, as I say, I was seeing a lot of nodding heads, but if there's anyone that has thoughts about this as not being valuable and useful and a good way forward, please, I think we want to make sure we're doing moving in a direction that's valuable and of interest to all of you.
Paul, and you and I have had a chat about this already. I think so Mike's been doing work on this. When we think about impact investing in our different areas, the idea of having common frameworks with other fund managers and ultimately metrics, we see that as extremely valuable. And first time I've attended this forum, but the World Ocean Council, it strikes me, has got a great position here to be able to develop that framework and then get it adopted by other funds managers, and ultimately, and I think you put the point here, use that to get engagement from institutional investors. So if it sets out the framework, what we mean by impact investing when it comes to the oceans, what are the objectives, and how do we, as best we can, because metrics are extremely difficult, but how can we measure the outputs, outcomes, and impacts of investing? I just think that's a really powerful way to advance this and to attract more capital into the sector. So yeah, I think this looks great. I think Mike and I can be a tag team on the working group.
Great. Okay. All right. We've got the Australian connection then. Very good. Okay. Any other? I'll just back up to just quickly go through those pieces again to that I may have gone through a bit too quickly. Yeah. And one point I'd also make is that we, being cognizant of the relevant broader organizations and efforts to create these kinds of frameworks for different components of the investing universe, I guess I would say. And so in particular, I'm thinking of, for example, the global GIN, the Global Impact Investment Network, and their IRIS Plus program. And so I've been in touch with them, and we have been suggesting that there's a need to address the ocean component of a whole range of sectors that don't get picked up by a sectoral piece or by a focus not just a focus on sort of nature-based solutions or ecosystems and so on. And so we want to be, I think, complementary to and feeding into some of those broader systems and structures that don't have the ocean sort of specialty, both in terms of from the investor perspective and also then from the content perspective of the science, the issues, the impacts, the economic and business operations, etc. So that's a part of where we're going with this as well, is to make sure those entities know we're working on this, and we have the sort of the ocean specialty team here really engaging on this.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Is the intent of the group to build a resource for investors in public companies? So ESG, we're using the terms interchangeably, but typically ESG refers to public companies, impact investing to investing in private companies. So is the mandate of this working group to design an ESG framework for investing in public companies? Or is it both, to have two sets of standards, or one standard that has utility for both kinds of investments? Just to clarify further what the specific mandate and output of this group would be.
Yeah, I mean, I would be tending towards the latter, that it's something that's got applicability across, but that's, you know, I think the working group can really tease that out and define it more clearly. But I would put the question to the group on the call here to see if people have thoughts about that. Very good question, Lena.
But there are just some technical differences. For example, public companies are required to report on certain kinds of activities, while private companies are not. And so there's some technical differences in how to think about a framework or a process of evaluating companies. So that's why I bring it up.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that important question?
I could give you my view from my perspective, which tends to start at the very lower end of the marketplace for blue economy businesses, so young companies. And one of the issues, and there are many issues, but one of the challenges that they have is iterating credible exits. If they are successful as young companies, they need to iterate credible exits, as every business does that's seeking to obtain investment. Now, I think the way that plays out at the other end of the marketplace is if we can educate institutional investors, and typically the sort of very conservative money that's involved when all risk has been taken out of a sector, if we can educate that money as part of this process about all of the benefits that come from ocean investing, and you know, many of those benefits sit around ESG, SDG, sit around taking carbon out, sit around even as one of the new members today iterated, actually restoring the oceans to what they used to be. That begins to close that gap, and I think it helps. You know, the work I'm involved in, it helps across the board to have really serious institutional money, which usually accesses public companies, knowledgeable about this area. It helps to drive those public companies into the arms of those early stage businesses in the blue economy that actually can produce the solutions that will keep those investors satisfied and happy that they are behaving in a knowledgeable way towards the oceans, insofar as the oceans are part of their business. That's kind of the way I see it. I don't know if that's at all helpful, but I think it's a great question. But that would be the background against which I would judge how we go about it.
Paul, the way we do it at Inspire, we're obviously impact investors, and we do it in the public markets. We think of the problem that we're trying to resolve and looking for companies that provide solutions. So that's the impact. And then we look at how they go about it, which is the sustainability or the ES and G factors. So are they doing it in a sustainable way? So we look at measures both on intentionality of those companies and what they're trying to do, how additional they are in trying to deliver that impact, and then also how they go about it, which is their environmental, social, and governance, the various factors that attribute to the sustainability of that business. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
But
And that's
just
the
to get
framework we
to Lena specific, then Michael, are you guys distinguishing between public and private?
We're only invested in public equities.
Got it. Okay. All right.
My
Okay.
suggestion as someone who's involved in both and has design standards for both is to distinguish between those two and have two sets of standards, because fundamentally the mandate for those investing in public companies and private companies is different. The process is different. And there are enough differences to where if you try and cover both, it becomes so general that it's perhaps less useful or less contributing less towards the outcomes that we would all like to see for the ocean.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I think my ramblings were really to support that we cover both, but I completely agree that they should be covered in separate sets of proposals.
Okay, thanks. This is good, good sort of operational feedback here. And Lena, I'm going to be coming back to you and seeing if we can certainly, and those that have spoken, to see if you guys can all get involved in the working group. And we'll, see, we'll work to define that scope of work in a way that addresses this challenge that an approach that Lena has raised on this. Okay, any other input on this? And otherwise, I will start mapping this out and coming back to the group as a whole, and then we'll pick up the development of the working group. Just checking the time here, and so those again, there's been a few people that have joined late. Just to let you know, we are recording this, and that if you did join late, we're using the chat room as a place for people to sign in, and just so we're sure who all is here, to put in your name and an affiliation. Just one last, Daniela, if you're still here, interested in any thoughts from the Blue Invest platform side about this, what we've just been talking about here in terms of developing the framework as per the previous slides and last 15 minutes or so of discussion. How do you see this intersecting with, if Daniela or Catherine are still with us, intersecting with the Blue Invest platform work?
Yeah, that's I'm here still, Paul. Thank you. This is very, it's great to see you going through the process as well as talking about this and what is important there. We are not really, and our scope of activity, we're not focused on this ourselves, but this is something that is in big discussions, right, everywhere. So I think if you, that could be a very interesting topic for us to present, in perhaps a discussion, a session, an online event or something, because it's on everybody's agenda. I know that, I don't know how you are aligned with the taxonomy of the EC, if you are considering these aspects as well. I know the new regulations that will come. Or what do you want to do once you define the framework? Then what you're going to do with it? How are you going to take this broader?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And I didn't mean to imply that you jumped off the call. I can't see who all is here, so I wasn't sure. Thanks for that feedback. And so I think certainly one of the things would be to help us connect up with the parties that are, as you say, people are talking about this and interested in moving forward with this kind of development. So anything we can do to connect up with those people that you're aware of that have an interest or efforts underway on this sort of thing, and then perhaps we may be looking at, as you were sort of alluding to, I think co-convening around this with your constituents and those that that are interested in this. As we move forward. So that's getting back to the point of let's make sure we connect up with the relevant institutions and efforts that are going on. So thank you for that. If there's no other thoughts on this action area, I will jump ahead to a couple of WOC pieces of information. And then if we have a few minutes, if there's other sort of information that people want to share. So we will be, as I mentioned last month, putting together our a virtual, for the first time, Sustainable Ocean Summit in the in early December, 9 to 11 December. As I believe I mentioned last time, we had been invited by the G20 to develop the SOS as an event held in association with the G20, but just as recently as about a month ago, or a little more than a month ago, the G20 secretary came back and basically had to wasn't able to continue with that partnership arrangement because they're so overwhelmed with transferring the entire G20 process to a virtual situation all the way through to the Leaders Summit next month. So we are, the World Ocean Council board wanted us to move forward with the Sustainable Ocean Summit, and we are hustling together this with over 3 days, several 90-minute sessions per day, two perhaps more, and certainly following on from our last year's focus on investment, to have at least one session focused on the investment side of things. That's the first one here you see listed. And the proposal is to use it, as per the next slide I'll go to use that session to focus on what we've just been talking about, and really a working session around this development. And I think, Daniela, this will help create the opportunity to draw in other entities and really it'll be very early days for our work as a roundtable group on this, but we can certainly put forward the intentions, the plans, and invite people to get involved in that process, either in the working group or through the roundtable more broadly, and really lay out the landscape for this work, working together to develop a common framework. So that would be our intention on this. And if there are ideas, strong feelings about other SOS sessions that we could and should organize in the virtual event this year, happy to entertain those. We do need to really set the program within the next week or so. We did have quite a diverse range of approaches to investment and the ocean economy and sustainable development last year at the SOS, and so there's a lot of ways to break down the range of issues and approaches to the whole broad investment side of the blue economy. For now, we'll focus on this session, but happy if people want to think about this and get back to me. We can add in additional sessions, but as you see from the list here, the other sessions will be focused on those core topics that we continue to work on at the World Ocean Council: the Law of the Sea, infrastructure adaptation, the Smart Ocean, Smart Industries program, and linking that to the Decade of Ocean Science, the biofouling and invasive species. A new piece in there that's, I think, of interest to many of you involved in impact investing, and this has come up from some of the major ocean industries, is really using the role and function of the World Ocean Council to focus on biodiversity, particularly with this understanding and pulling together information for operationalizing an approach to not only minimizing or avoiding impacts to biodiversity, but moving towards net positive ocean operations. Linked to that, or also as many of you would know, there is a major push to move forward with a 30% of the ocean being protected by 2030. So this has been called the 30 by 30 target. And this is being played out in general amongst the ocean community, the environment and science and government community, but also specifically in the context of the Convention on Biological Diversity, major treaty that hopefully all of you are somewhat familiar with. And I've personally been involved in that this conventional biological diversity, the CBD, for over 25 or 30 years. And with the World Ocean Council, we've been usually the only ocean business organization that's been engaged in that process. And that these new targets for the coming decade on conservation are a big focus for the CBD Conference of Parties that was meant to take place this year in China, has moved to next year because of COVID. And so really working to get the business and investment community informed and engaged on this 30 by 30 target. And so focusing at least part of a session at the Sustainable Ocean Summit this year on that, so that people are aware. So this is what we have in mind, and happy to, and we'll be keeping everyone informed as the program develops through communications on the SOS. The other piece, and I see we're rapidly running out of time here, just to let you know, we are moving also forward with something we've been developing for several years now, and had a session on this also at the Sustainable Ocean Summit last year, what we're calling the Global Blue Economy Innovation Initiatives Network. That was the terminology we used starting last year, to basically bringing together the ocean sustainability related accelerators, incubators, challenge competitions, and startup hubs. And we will be, we have nearly or more than 100 of such initiatives on the tracking spreadsheet I've been developing over the years on this, and have started through the SOS session last year, and through some one-on-one and small group calls over the last couple of years, working to explore this, and have had positive feedback on creating that network to foster communication and coordination, and really look for the synergies amongst these various incubators, accelerators, and challenge competitions, et cetera, and focus on particular issues. This gets back to some of the comments that have come up earlier about needing to focus on the impact issues, and link then to the market, which is really the ocean industry. So, for example, on biofouling and invasives, to really link that to the industries that need those solutions, and see if there's interest amongst the various innovation initiatives to coordinate competitions and boot camps and startup outreach around particular issues, and ensure that we've got input from the market for those that's needing those innovations. So we will be having a call, a conference call, video call amongst the various initiatives early next month, to really take this to the next level of development. And happy to entertain any feedback on that. But in the meantime, I'll also just quickly open up this point that's come up from several of you, that we could and should be using the roundtable as an opportunity for people to share particular developments that they would like the group to be aware of. And in the last minute or so, I'm happy to open the floor up and have any input from anyone on particular developments that you think would be valuable for the group to be aware of.
Quickly, just one, Paul, just related to that innovation. In Australia, there's the Ocean Impact Organisation. They've just gone through a Pitch Fest program, and they had about 200 applications. They've now drawn that down to 10, and about, I think, early November going to announce the winners of that. But just in that vein of innovation, that's what's happening here in Oz.
Thanks, Michael. And we're then pleased to be able to announce their Pitch Fest and help get the word out as that was being developed. And that's part of what we'll be doing through the network, is helping promote the efforts of those initiatives, and, as I say, helping them, where possible, focus on particular issues and link to the corporate community, which is the market, along with the investment community, for the innovations that emerge from those efforts. I know we're on the dot here with, according to my clock, with the 90 minutes. And so we can go ahead and wrap up, unless there's any closing points or comments that people want to bring up. want to thank again Daniela and Catherine for being here, and for Daniela making the presentation and engaging on the Blue Invest platform. And we look forward to continuing to develop the working relationship between World Ocean Council and the Blue Invest platform. And we will be following up with the action areas that the 2 action areas we've talked about here, and have been trying to pre-plan the meeting dates. And so I'm proposing the last Tuesday in November as the next meeting date, and we'll be sending more details on that, of course, as we get closer to that time. So thanks everyone, and especially to those up early and up late to participate. Always much appreciated, and look forward to continuing to work together on the Ocean Funds and Investor Roundtable with all of you.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Paul. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul.